a lot of the aim in today's topic is just to get us to see how much we kind of mistake this idea of really what we were taught growing up through school, through our upbringing. And some of us have really better examples of that. And when we get really the mix of, spirituality or really a lot of us religion, that adds a factor to it. When you have really a good parent, or maybe it was like an uncle or an aunt, right, that kind of injected, maybe it was a mentor, maybe a teacher or coach. And so we've learned a lot of good things. I think growing up, most of us have had a fair share of how does life work, or what are the things, what are the elements to life that really play the biggest role in us feeling fulfilled, us feeling happy. And today I wanted to just add a little bit to so much of really taking us back to maybe something that we understood at one time, but as we get older and we start to take on life as adults or young adults even, it's really confusing, and sometimes it feels too good to be true on really what this looks like. And when I bring to you this topic of how the small, okay, these small things, what we see as small, a lot of times not as important, but really it's the small things that really unlock the big things, okay? And so I want to start, obviously I always talk so much about the inner work, the inner infrastructure of us as humans, right? So much of what we do with Allergic to Average, so much of what I speak on is really bringing us back into the importance and really the necessity that we have to get back to right thought and right heart. And so what happens often is we start to see how the pain and the struggle of life really gets us out of what we were born into, what we were born from, which is love, our Creator making us from, right? God giving us this overarching best model that we could ever have of this thing called love. And really through life, through, the social elements of just our outer world, it's really easy to be convinced that love is sometimes far-fetched, that love sometimes is not the answer. What could love look like in the grand scheme of things? And we have to get back to the small, and what does that really look like so often? And so I want to talk about that, and really two different factors, right? Two different ways of bringing that down. Really, again, how that starts within us, what that looks like, what is that small that I'm talking about that unlocks the big, and then how that plays out around us in the world that we see and the experience of life that we take on and that we have with one another. And so much of the small, when I talk about the inner infrastructure of us, right? Our heart, our mind, I think so much of what we have to get back to in this realization is really going back to, it's not that love is the issue, it's the issues or maybe the hesitations or the obstacles that we have against love, that it's not big enough, that it's not strong enough, that it's not powerful enough to actually change us for the best and really the world around us. And so the reason why we have to always start with us is because, again, this idea, this principle that what you do not have for you, right, you can't give to others. You can't give to the world. You can't give to your family. You can't give to the community around you. And so if we don't find this place, okay, of what it looks like to really bring love, and when I use that word love, I also want us to see this as really bringing healing and wholeness to ourselves, okay? Every single one of us, and this is really what makes, even the allergic to average versus the average that exists in our world. So much of I feel like the resistance that we feel is going back to understanding that love is the most powerful force that could ever exist and that has been brought to us. And so through our life, through the different seasons, the different stages and periods that we take on in life, our biggest mission, okay, hear me, our biggest goal is to release and get rid of, aka find healing for ourselves where pain, where struggle, where suffering, where rejection, where anything that is outside of love has tried to convince us differently. And so every single one of us, if we were to do an account on, what are the heart wounds, what are the traumas, what is the pain that has got me to think outside of love, that got me to think differently, that got me to think that I maybe need to earn being loved, or that I need to do more so that people would love me, or I need to be fill in the blank, right? I need to be this, I need to have that so that I can even love myself. Okay, so going back to this idea of the small, right? Once we find more and more healing, more and more joy, I would say more and more fulfillment for the example of who we are, the story that we're living, right? And really love is the only thing that can do that. It's allowing yourself to get out of this false way of thinking that because you've felt and you've experienced pain, rejection, the fear that comes in after that. And so much of this, you've heard me talk about it, right, in psychology and within science on our studying of realizing that so much of what has made you the adult that experiences the world that you live in today, those beliefs and those things were really kind of concrete from the time that you were really starting at 1 all the way up to 5, some say 7. So we have these, again, when I talk about beliefs and how critical those are for us, we have these beliefs that are so far outdated, and we've continued to build evidence around them of why we're not good enough, why we're nothing special, or maybe why at one time when love was the answer, or when you demonstrated love, or whenever you expressed love, right, why that wasn't good enough. And so when we start with the small, which again gets slept on so often, but when we can actually start with what is really at the end of the day is a small thing, but unlocks such big things in us. This goes back to us allowing ourselves, which at this point in age, right now, is really one of the hardest things to do, right? But it's so simple to get back to creating an intimacy with yourself, looking inwardly at the life that you live, at the things that you've been able to overcome at this point in your life. If you were to really take account and evaluate how many things you thought weren't going to happen, how many things that you thought were impossible, how many things you thought were going to be a loss. But now looking back, most of the time we notice, and we can go back and see that was just fear, right? And so what happens now is we fast forward and we look into our society today, and we've lost kind of this sense for what seems like the small, the unimportant, but it's really creating a sacred place, a time, a place, and giving yourself that permission to really just quiet down, right? And Scripture tells us to be still. We look at that and realize, like, really to be still is to really actually know who God is. Be still and know that I am God. And that only happens in the stillness, in the quietness. And the world that we are experiencing right now, it's so easy. We are addicted to the noise, to the news, to the music, to what he's saying, to what she's saying, to the opinions, to the chaos. And we've lost this ability, right? And we've lost this gift to be still and to slow down. And I feel like now, especially more than ever, that is our secret weapon in capitalizing and moving forward, right? Like the meek shall inherit the earth. And really the meek is this idea that a person and an individual that can actually go back to what is found the most in truth, right? So much in the religious world, especially in Texas, right? We have this idea, and we have this really experience of who God is, Holy Spirit. Some can, I know not so much in this area, but some can call that Buddha, some call that Allah, right? But I'm talking about this overarching theme of who God is and what God does and what God brings to us. And it's in the stillness that we can actually find him. It's in the stillness that we will actually find him. And in that stillness, that's actually where we find ourselves. And so from the time that we wake up, so often our example of life is just straight to the phone, straight to the to-do list, right? Straight to work, straight to the drop-off, the errands that need to be run, straight to the conversations that need to be had. And so much of us, the only time that we actually shut down and process or maybe even have a moment of intimacy for ourselves, a moment of quietness, a moment of stillness, is probably sometimes, if even that, is maybe going to sleep. And often, and I found myself in seasons of doing the same, we're not even, we will fall asleep to noise. We will fall asleep to the TV on. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying when we've put ourselves in a position where all we do is consume and we don't give ourselves a chance to really dissect into stillness, into really your imagination, really into prayerful thoughts and sending your love and sending your joy and sending what is going to be maybe for the next day. We've lost this sense of how big we are on the inside. Holy Spirit living within us and what that really does when we start to partner our beliefs and our thoughts and our intentions with how we're going to approach something. And that's really the first level of cause, right? We understand cause and effect. And so much of us, including myself, I found myself living from the effect of just trying to exist. And you know, it's this idea of like, if you don't ever put gas in your car, right, the car it's going to eventually run out and you can't go anywhere. And there's so many of us who we don't see the small value of what it seems like, that the importance of doing the small thing, which is to be still, to slow down. And you hear me talk about this before, and giving yourself the permission to maybe take a walk and have a prayer. Maybe it's when you wake up in the morning. So much of this ability and gift that we have to just really, I don't know your opinion on, but meditating. And I'm not saying that has to be, scripted a certain way, but it's allowing yourself to be one with your thoughts, to be one with your beliefs, to be one with maybe what happened the day before, and really just releasing and surrendering that. But now as we fast forward, and so much of us, so much of our population, so much of our world, we don't see the importance of being still, of giving ourselves those moments to break away, to quiet your mind, and to really tune in to you. We don't have the ability to tune up, to get better, to adjust, to forgive, to release, to decide again. And so we live each day just going on to the next. And so I share this because that's such a small thing, but what that does, not only, especially for you as an individual, right? Peace of mind, peace of heart, right? Joy, getting out of the chaos of, what our world is so dominated by, which is the negativity, which is found and sourced in fear. This allows you to move out of that and actually decide and dictate where you're coming from. And so that's one of the first things I want to talk about, the small that we get to experience that unlocks such big things, that unlocks those coincidences, that unlocks those promotions at times, that unlocks relationships and you meeting people and bringing on new friendships or new partners, or maybe it's a new spouse or girlfriend, boyfriend, you name it. It's really allowing yourself to do what seems small, but what unlocks such a big thing. And, in church growing up, we learned about prayer and, you learned about doing your devotion and reading. But at this point in age, most Christians don't even give themselves a moment to be still. So call it meditation. Call it reading your word, call it, prayer time. But to any degree of what you want to call it, the question I leave with you on that is, are you giving yourself those moments? Are you giving yourself, more than not, the permission and the ability to detach, really disconnect from the noise, from this world that we take on and we see, and really get into the world of yourself? Because that's the level of cause that actually affects so much going on. It's not what you're experiencing. It's not what he or she said. It's not how that person cut you off. But really, the big cause with the capital C is really coming to Christ, right? Coming to God and allowing him to renew your thoughts, to transform your ways of thinking, to really get into this place and understanding of having kind of this atonement with your false ways of seeing things. And again, you've heard me say, and you've probably heard it said before, like, we don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. And that's what I was talking about last week. And so a deeper level of that is so much of how when we are giving ourselves this time to just peel away, to stop, to process, to pray, to meditate, right? How big that actually unlocks so much of what we want to see and so much of what we want to accomplish. And so that was really the first area I wanted us to really look at. What are the small ways that you could get back to having some type of stillness, having some type of quietness? Is that in the mornings for you? And I know the mornings is hard. Maybe that's just, maybe at some point in your day, you give yourself the ability to break away, to go take a walk, right? Maybe that's at nighttime. Maybe that's part of you maybe processing and journaling some things out. Maybe that's reading a book. Like, we really have to get back to the small. And so the second part that I wanted to spend the next few minutes on is how the small unlocks the big in our world. Because out of that, when we don't find that stillness, when we don't find that quietness, we don't find that peace, we don't find that type of joy that we want and that so many other people want in our world and that we don't really get to experience, right? It plays out in what we see happening every single day around us. And so, of course, with Allergic's Average Men, our mission, one of our biggest goals is that we continue to highlight and we continue to shed light in honoring people that are doing the small. Because at the end of the day, really, I feel like we have to get back to the small things because we begin to overthink. We begin to overconsume like what it looks like to find value and to find love in doing big things. Like everybody's convinced, even me at times, like I got to be doing something much bigger. And I get that. And at times I really do want that. But it's just like the process in going to the gym and losing weight or building muscle or building your cardio and getting yourself healthier in general. It's the small steps. It's the processes of doing it more than once consistently, right? Over time, that actually gets you to that body, that physique, that whatever we call it when we're taking on the fitness journey, right? When we're eating healthier, when we are giving ourselves and we're feeding ourselves with the things, the nutrition, and allowing ourselves to experience something different. These things don't happen overnight. But yet we want that approach of having it done overnight, right? And so much of what we see in the experience of just like the negativity, the bad, like that low energy from ignoring people in public to, I've talked about it often, the simple things like waiting and just trying to hold the door, acknowledging that somebody's behind you and that they're coming and you're, I love watching videos where, people don't have to do anything in a scenario where somebody's experiencing something kind of like, an embarrassment or an accident has happened and unfolded and somebody, a stranger, decides they want to step in and they want to help, right? Sometimes it's like, again, I've talked about just like acknowledging somebody else, the presence of another human being, to greet them, to smile at them, to ask them, how are you doing? And to like genuinely mean that, to actually, people can feel that. It's an energy that is not seen necessarily. You don't see this energy, but you feel this energy. You experience this. And that's why more and more, that type of impression, like actually looking to do and not overlooking and not running from what we see as the small, again, waving, acknowledging somebody, maybe blessing somebody, whether that could be a food, water, or just by having a conversation. this actually takes us back to a world that feels more there for each other. More love is experienced, that energy is felt and embraced, and more, man, when we are in such a social media dominating time, when it's really, really easy to get lost in all the different things that are going on around us, when all the different opinions, all the different, brands and companies that want your sale, like us getting back to the fact that every single one of us really want the same thing. We, as human beings, we want to be seen. We want to be loved. We want to be appreciated. We want to be cared for. We want to be valued. And so when you go back to allowing yourself to do some of the small work, the footwork in your inner infrastructure of you deciding, you dictating that love will be the focus, that is something that you're going to continue to give to you, this by default naturally plays out into the expression of when you go to your workplace and you have that annoying coworker, and instead of coming from effect, you're coming from cause, and it does something within your mind, right? Science, within your neural pathways, within your beliefs, within even just your perspective, your actual just perspective of this person, it shifts. It actually shifts, right? And instead of you coming from a place where for some reason somebody cut you off, or they didn't hold the door, or they whatever, you don't just automatically dive into, well, forget this person, F this person, right? Forget you, or takes you straight into anger, right? When you're cut off, or when you're kind of blown off, or when you find somebody that's rejected you, or when you find what we often find, which is some really bad customer service, where you're in a place and you're spending your money there, and the person helping you at the counter, it's just not it, right? They're just not there. This allows you to move out of that and not be a person of effect. We have the averages running through this effect. They're just taking what comes, they're taking what they experience, and they're just coming back and playing another effect to that. We are individuals that are not living off of a chance, taking a chance, but we're back to choice. And this is how this plays out. So much of when we are allowing ourselves to do the small, this unlocks the big in ourselves. And when we take on the small, what seems like the unseen, right, this actually unlocks the big in our communities, in our world, and what more and more people would love and really, really like to see. So the negativity, right, the living by just effect all the time and not actually coming from a place of cause, right? The chaos and the things that so much we see so much is dominating our perspective and our focus. We don't need any more of that, right? We don't need no more of the naysayers. We don't need no more of the ones that are against, why things can't get better. The ones that are saying why, the world is just continuing to get better. The truth is, when we live at cause, the world gets better because your world gets better. We bring healing to the world when we bring healing to ourselves. We bring comfort and good energy to those around us when we allow ourselves to bring that to ourselves. And so when we start with what seems small, so much now is just really the forgotten. We actually are doing what we are supposed to do as creators, right? We're unlocking the big things. And sometimes those big things aren't even to you. They may not even be for you. But the big things that maybe somebody else out there desperately needs, maybe within their day, this small gesture, this small acknowledgement, this small conversation, that small smile unlocked a reason, a big reason for them to continue on, to continue to see that there are good people, to continue to see that there is still positive energy out here. There is still something that exists called love. And so the last thing I want to end on is just really a quick story. I'm taking my little one this morning to childcare to get her dropped off, and we're talking about God. She's talking about God, and she goes, "Where is God?" Because I know He's everywhere, but where is He, right? So we're talking about this idea, and she's 3, so I'm explaining how He's invisible. She thought that was such a funny word, invisible. And so it was a reminder, though, to me when we talked about her trying to see God at 3 years old. Where is God? Because I know he's everywhere, but I guess he's invisible. Took me back to this really like learning from, we are the cause and effect of, we are the hands and feet. We are the experience of that love of God. We are the ones that actually get to decide and actually get to demonstrate and show and play out what it looks like to be a person that's moving in your process, finding healing, finding restoration, finding forgiveness, but focusing on love being, yes, I feel like the harder thing, but the most sustainable, most energetic, most fulfilling thing that can actually change and continue to sustain our world. And so we are the ability, we are the cause and the effect of bringing this invisible God to this visible world. And so I wanted to let that be a reminder for you today on this Tuesday as I wrap it up. And if you were watching, man, make sure you throw me a comment so I know. Good morning, Brittany. I see you were watching. But we are bringing the visible to the invisible, right? We are the experience that people are trying to experience a better way of a better just outlook on having in life. That is us. That's what the Allergic to Average does, right? We get out of the comfort. We get out of what everybody else is saying or doing, and we decide. We dictate, here's who I'm going to be, and here's who I'm going to continue to push myself to walk in this element of, and who I want to continue to demonstrate myself in being. What I find most important. Is it fear or is it love, right? Is it hate? Is it anger? Or is it forgiveness? Is it peace? And so we get to decide that, and I wanted to just bring just you back to the simplicity. What seems so small so often is really what we have to get back to, and we can't forsake those. We can't let those things go away, because if we do, more and more of the things we don't like, what we don't like to see in our world, is what we will continue to. So I challenge you with that today. I want to show the appreciation for you guys hopping on and checking out the live. But we got to get back to the small, because it's really the small that unlocks the big that we want to see, the big potential, the big greatness that you walk in. We got to get back to the basics. We got to get back to the small things. And so I love you guys. I honor you guys. I appreciate you guys. And just wanted to send you another Tune In Tuesday, giving you guys some value. So share with me any thoughts, any questions, anything else that you might have from today's Tune In Tuesday. And just so you know, man, appreciate you guys, and I love you guys.